Did you know all along that I could shed golden teardrops? Is that why you never wanted me to watch a sad movie or get hurt in any way? And another thing, what happened to the kidnappers? How did you manage to defeat them all and get past them to reach me? There were at least 6 of them, and they were all big, burly men. She still didn't say a word. She just carried on packing our things into bags. But I was determined to get some answers. Too much had happened in the last few weeks for me to just go along with what my grandma was telling me to do. Grandma, I am not going anywhere unless you explain to me exactly what is going on. And the first thing I want to know the answer to is, did you know that I could cry golden teardrops? Have you been stopping me from crying all of my life so that I wouldn't discover my ability? Grandma, I demand to know.
Okay, but wait until we get into the car. Once we are on our way, I promise I will explain everything.
Okay, but if you don't, then I'm not going anywhere with you.
I promise I will tell you everything you want to know.
What I'm about to tell you is going to shock you to the core, but it's nothing compared to what you will find out at the end of the story. I helped my grandma put our things into our car and we set off. At first, we just sat in silence, but when we had gotten some distance from our house, my grandma began to speak.
So you want to know the truth, do you?
Yes, I do.
Are you sure? Because you might not like what you hear.
I just need to know what's going on. Even if I don't like it, I need to know the truth.
Okay then, here goes. As you know, your parents were scientists.
Yes, I remember. You told me.
Well, what I didn't tell you was that your parents had been performing experiments on you. I'm not sure of all the details because they never explained it to me, but all I do know is that after they completed one experiment, your tears began to turn into gold drops.
But how? And why would they do something like that to their own child?
I'm sorry, I don't have those answers.
I just don't understand why my parents would want to do that to me.
I'm sorry, I have no idea why. When your parents died in the car crash, I decided that I would take you to live with me. I wanted to protect you. That's why I didn't want you to cry. I knew that if you cried, you would find out that your tears turned into gold.
You should have told me. I could have handled it.
Yes, now maybe, but not when you were little. I had to make sure you never cried because I was worried that the government might take you away from me. They might want to conduct all sorts of experiments on you. I couldn't let that happen.
I suppose I can understand if you put it like that.
And another thing, I was worried in case someone tried to kidnap you and use you to make them rich.
Well, you were right about that one. Someone did kidnap me, and all they wanted me to do every day was cry so that they could gather up my golden teardrops.
You see? That was exactly what I was worried about. I knew that people would become greedy if they knew what you were capable of.
As my grandma explained everything to me, I realized that her stopping me from crying and finding out about my gold tears was probably for the best. But one thing was still confusing me. But what I don't understand is how the kidnappers found out about me. You've done such a good job of keeping my secret safe. How on earth could they have known? My grandma opened her mouth to answer, but before she had a chance to speak, we were suddenly hit from behind by a speeding car. I felt my whole world spinning and turning over and over. I thought it was never gonna stop, but eventually the car came to a stop. I started groaning. Grandma, are you okay? There was no reply. Suddenly, through the dust, I saw 2 figures walking towards me. They reached out and picked me up. Grandma? There was no response. The next thing I knew, everything had gone black. I began to stir, my body ached, and my head was throbbing. As I blinked my eyes open, I realized that I was in a bed. But it wasn't my own bed. I had no idea where I was. I looked around the room, and suddenly I realized that there were pictures of me on the wall. Well, 3-year-old me. In some of the pictures, I was with a couple. They must be photos of me with my parents. I was so confused. Where am I? And where's Grandma? And why are all of these photos of me on the walls? I sat up in bed and was about to get up when the bedroom door opened. Standing there was a woman. She looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen her before. She came over to me and gave me a hug. There was something about her that made me feel safe. When she put her arms around me, my worries seemed to vanish.
Sarah, thank goodness you are safe now. You are home where you belong.
I had no idea what she was talking about, and how did she know my name? Before I could finish my sentence, a man had come into the room. There was something about him too. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I just knew that I had met him before. Where's my grandma? Is she okay? We had a car crash.
Oh, you mean that horrid woman? I certainly hope that she isn't okay.
What an awful thing to say. Why would you say that about my grandma?
You don't want anything more to do with that evil woman.
That's my grandma you're talking about, and she isn't evil. She's wonderful. She has done everything to make my life perfect.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're mistaken.
How would you know? You don't know anything about me.
Darling, we know everything about you.
How can you? It's the first time you've met me.
You had better let me explain.
Okay, go on then. I waited for the woman to speak, and she looked over at the man, took a deep breath, and began to speak.
The woman that you think is your grandma isn't really your grandma. She is a scientist. She performed an experiment on you and then kidnapped you. We are your real parents. We have searched far and wide to try and find you, but she was always one step ahead of us.
That was until recently when we made a discovery.
I looked at the man to see what he would say next.
We uncovered a hidden file that the woman had hidden at our old science laboratory. It was a file on you. It revealed all the experiments she had made on you and all the results. We found out that you can produce gold from tears. We did some further research and hired some private investigators to find you. It took them a while, but eventually they found you.
If that's the truth, why didn't they bring me to you?
As soon as they found out where you were, they suddenly stopped answering all our calls. We had no idea where you or they were. We were so worried about you.
Do you have photos of the investigators? The couple looked a bit confused.
Yes. I think we have copies of their ID cards. But why do you want to see them?
I don't know, it's just a hunch I have. The couple took out the photos and handed them to me. I was right. The investigators were the people who kidnapped me. I know these men.
What? So did they rescue you?
No, they did the complete opposite.
I don't understand.
They kidnapped me.
What?
They kidnapped me and kept me locked up. They made me cry every day to produce gold teardrops for them. They just wanted me to make them rich.
Oh my God, I can't believe it. This is all our fault. Honestly, we thought that they were trustworthy. We thought that they would just do the job we were paying them to do, to rescue you and bring you home to us.
I guess when they knew what you were capable of, the temptation for them to become rich was just too much.
I sat on the bed trying to process everything that they just told me. It was hard to take it all in. Had my grandma really been lying to me all of my life? And my parents? I had always thought that they had died in a car crash when I was very young, and now this couple were telling me that they were my real parents? And then the investigators turning out to be my kidnappers. There was nothing real in my life. And to top it all, I still had to deal with the fact that my tears turned into gold. The thoughts were turning over and over in my head when suddenly we heard an almighty crash. My parents and I ran to the bedroom window and looked outside. I couldn't believe the sight before me. A car had crashed into the front of the house and it burst into flames. We watched as the fire engulfed the car, and suddenly a figure emerged from the front of the car and looked up at us. Grandma! I have to help her.
No, you can't.
But what if she's hurt?
Remember what we said. That woman is not your grandma. She is very dangerous and evil. We have to get out of here.
But I mean, are you sure? Maybe you've made a mistake. Can't we at least talk to her?
No, that would be the worst thing we could do. You have to trust us. Why would we lie to you? We're your parents, aren't we?
I was so confused at that point. I didn't know whether to believe this couple that I had only just met, or the woman who had brought me up. I really wanted to believe my grandma. She was the one that I had known all of my life. Surely, if she had been dangerous, I would have known.
Come on, we need to go downstairs and get out through the back of the house.
I hesitated for a few seconds.
Come on, we don't have time to waste.
I decided that I would go along with what they were saying. At least until I had time to work out for myself who was telling the truth. If it turned out that this couple were really the ones who had done the experiment on me, it wouldn't be wise to make them angry. I would just have to let them think that I believed what they were saying, and that I was going along with them. I followed them down the stairs and through the kitchen. But when they opened the back door, we were shocked to see my grandma was standing there.
Sarah, are you okay? What have they done to you?
I looked at my grandma to my parents and back again. My parents looked scared to death. They grabbed me by the hand and pulled me out the door, pushing my grandma out of the way.
Quick, run! We have to get away from her!
I started to run through the garden, but then I heard a scream from behind me. When I turned to see what was going on, I nearly passed out with shock. My grandma and my parents were having a full-on kung fu fight. Bam! Bam! Kapow! I watched as my grandma threw a punch and it landed straight on my dad's chin. He went flying through the air and landed at the other side of the garden. But in the next second, my mom caught my grandma with a flying kick straight in the stomach. I winced as I saw the look on my grandma's face as she fell winded to the ground. No, stop! Please, all of you, stop fighting! They all stopped fighting and looked in my direction. I thought that it would be the end of the fight, but I was wrong. My grandma jumped back and pounced on my mom. They started rolling around and around on the floor, lashing out at each other as they went. Then, my dad came running over to join in again. He grabbed hold of my grandma and pulled her off my mom's back. They were all throwing punches and kicks left, right, and center. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there, frozen to the spot, my mind in turmoil. This can't be happening. How on earth am I gonna work out who to believe? Are you as confused as I was? Well, make sure to tune in for the third and final episode if you want to find out who was telling the truth. I followed my parents down the stairs and through the kitchen, but when they opened the back door, we were shocked to see my grandma was standing there.
Sarah, are you okay? What have they done to you?
I looked from my grandma to my parents and back again. My parents looked scared to death. They grabbed me by the hand and pulled me out the door, pushing my grandma out of the way.
Quick, run! We have to get away from her!
I started to run through the garden, but then I heard a scream behind me. When I turned to see what was going on, I nearly passed out with shock. My grandma and my parents were having a full-on kung fu fight. Bam! Bam! Kapow! They were all throwing punches and kicks left, right, and center. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there, frozen to the spot, my mind in turmoil. This can't be happening. How on earth am I gonna work out who to believe? My dad hit my grandma and she fell to the floor.
Quick, Sarah, run now!
We ran out of the garden and jumped into the car. As we drove off into the night, I couldn't help but worry about my grandma. I really hoped that she wasn't hurt badly. Where are we going to go?
There is a cottage that we know. It's far from here. We can lay low there for a while.
It's in a very remote area on a cliffside. No one will know we are there.
We arrived at the cottage and put our things inside.
You don't need to worry about that woman anymore. You'll be safe here with us.
At first, I was still a bit wary, but after a while, I began to settle into our life in the cottage. It was a peaceful place to live, and it wasn't long before I was starting to bond with my parents. It was nice to feel like a part of a real family, to have a mom and a dad. I didn't think much about the woman who I had thought was my grandma. We had been at the cottage a few weeks when something terrible happened. We were sitting in the dining room about to have dinner when we heard a noise coming from outside.
You two stay here. I'll go and investigate.
I watched as my dad went out of the room.
Ah!
My mom looked at me, her face white as a sheet. We both ran out of the house to see what was going on. When we got outside, we saw my dad sprawled out unconscious on the floor, and my grandma was standing over him. My mom grabbed hold of my hand as we started running into the woods. We kept on running and running until eventually we came out on the other side of the woods and I reached the edge of the cliff. There was nowhere left to run. We turned around, but as we did so, my grandma appeared right in front of us. I knew that there was no escaping her, so I decided to try and plead with her. Please, don't hurt us. You might not be my real grandma, but surely you care a little bit about me. The woman looked at me and hesitated. Why did you do it? Why did you perform experiments on me?
I had to. I needed a way to earn a lot of money.
But why? Why would you need so much money?
I needed it for my granddaughter. She was sick and needed surgery. I had to get the money to pay for it.
But why didn't you let me go home to my parents once you had the money?
By the time I had finished the experiments, my granddaughter had sadly passed away, and by then I had grown to love you like my own granddaughter. So that's why I decided not to use you for your potential money-making abilities. I decided that I would protect you, and so that's why I hid it from the public and from you yourself for all those years. I love you, dear.
How do I know that this is true?
Well, if I didn't love you, wouldn't I have used you for your gift? Wouldn't I have exploited you and become a rich woman? Don't listen to her. She's evil. She's only interested in using you. That's not true. I do love Sarah. If you love her, you will want the best for her. You would have wanted her to be with her real parents. You stole her from us. But I only did it because I miss my own granddaughter. I took good care of her, didn't I, Sarah? Remember all the good times we had together?
Yes, that is true. We did have some wonderful times.
I don't care about your good times. You are never going to see Sarah again. You can't stop me from seeing her. I won't let you. There's nothing you can do. She is our daughter and she lives with us now.
I could see my grandma was getting angrier and angrier. Suddenly, she charged at us. Just in time, my mom shoved me to the side. The woman missed us and went flying right over the edge of the cliff. As she fell, her eyes locked with mine. I could see that they were full of love and regret. I felt sad as I watched her disappear over the cliff and into the sea below.
Good. That's the end of her. Come on. We have to go and find your dad.
When we got back to the cottage, we found my dad was still unconscious on the floor. My mom got some water and splashed it onto his face.
What happened? Are you two all right?
We're fine.
What about the woman? Where is she?
She is gone. Gone for good. She tried to attack us, but we managed to dodge out of her way and she fell to her death.
My dad looked visibly relieved.
Oh, thank goodness. We can go home and live safely again.
We packed up our things and went straight back home. When I got into the bed that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the look on her face as she went over the cliff edge. Tears began to flow down my cheeks, and it wasn't long before my pillow was covered in tiny gold teardrops. I was grieving for the woman that I thought was my grandma. Even though I knew she had done a terrible thing to me, I had loved her for a very long time. We had been close. We spent all of our time together, and I missed her. As time went on, our lives began to get back to normal. I started back at school and my parents went back to work. Even though I thought about the old lady less and less, there were still times when I couldn't help but think about the woman that I had once loved. Even though I knew she was the one responsible for turning me into a gold maker, I couldn't help feeling sad that I would never see her again. There was no denying that she had given me a great childhood. She had done everything to make me happy and keep me safe. She had given me everything I needed. She had put me before anyone and everything. And that's how my story ends. My tears turn into gold, and I'm trying to keep it hidden from the public for my own safety. My ability is both a gift and a curse. I'll never go poor again, but I can never risk going out or doing anything that could result in tears. It's so much pressure, but I'll manage. I'll survive. And this is where I end my story. Or that's what I thought. You see, this isn't quite the end of my tale. Something else happened that changed everything. Stay tuned to the end of the video to find out. It was a Monday morning and I was in my English classroom chatting with my friends. We were all happy because our English teacher, Miss Jenkins, was sick and we were getting a substitute teacher that day. We all knew what that meant. We wouldn't have to do anywhere near as much work as usual. Everyone knew that substitute teachers were always really soft and never give you lots of homework. How lucky are we? Miss Jenkins always gives us a huge essay to write on Monday.
I know. I hope she takes the whole week off. The substitute teacher will definitely go easy on us. They always do.
The classroom door opened and the buzz of chatter started to die down. I looked at the teacher as she entered the room. I couldn't see her face, but I could see that she had brown hair. I was about to look away, but something made me look back. It was something in her walk. It was a walk that I recognized from someone, seemingly a long time ago. The teacher put her back down on the table and turned to face our class. My blood began to run cold. It was the old lady. Ah! I went into a complete panic. I knew that I had to get out of there. I jumped up from my chair, ran out of the room and down the corridor as fast as I could go. I ran around the corner and bumped straight into the principal.
And where do you think you're going in such a hurry, miss?
I have to get out of here. There's a dangerous woman in the classroom.
Now, don't be silly. That's just your substitute teacher. There's nothing dangerous about her.
But you don't understand.
Okay, then, explain everything to me. What is it that I don't understand?
I stood there looking at the principal.
Well, I'm waiting. Either give me a good reason why you think the teacher is dangerous, or you're going straight back to the classroom.
I sighed. It was no good. I couldn't tell the principal what the old lady had done to me because then he and everyone else would find out my secret. I had no choice but to go back to the classroom with him. As I walked back to the room, my heart was beating so fast and my stomach was in knots. What shall I say when I see her? What if she tries to kidnap me or something? I might never see my parents again. The principal held open the classroom and told me to go inside. I took a deep breath and walked into the room. But when I looked at the teacher, I was shocked. It wasn't the old lady. But how? All my classmates were looking at me weirdly. I was so embarrassed. I wanted to curl up and hide in a corner. Surely, I didn't imagine it. But how did the person switch back so quickly? I felt really scared and I began to tremble. The principal took one look at my shaking body and his face instantly looked sympathetic.
You really are scared, aren't you, Sarah?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you may go home. Maybe you're just overtired or something. Go home and have a sleep. I'm sure you'll feel better in the morning.
I could hardly hold my tears in. I was petrified that they would come rolling down my cheeks and everyone would know my secret. I grabbed my coat and my bag and I ran out of the school and all the way home. The instant I walked into my house, I let out a cry and stood there sobbing my heart out. The tears flowed and soon there was a huge pile of gold tears around my feet.
Sarah, whatever's the matter?
Oh, Mom, I was so scared.
Why? What happened?
We had a substitute teacher and I thought it was the old lady. I thought she'd come back to take me away from you.
Oh, darling, it was just your imagination. You are safe now. That woman is gone and she is never coming back.
But I nearly cried in school. What if I hadn't been able to control my tears? Everyone would have found out my secret and my life would be in danger again.
But you did control your tears. You are stronger than you think. You don't need to worry about anything. No one is going to find out what you are capable of. We are never going to let you be exploited or be in any danger.
Oh, Mom. What would I do without you and Dad to protect me? My mom put her arms around me and gave me a big hug.
Come on now, dry your tears. I think you've made enough gold for today.
I looked at the floor. We were surrounded by thousands and thousands of gold teardrops, enough to live off for the rest of our lives. I guess it was just my imagination. It was silly of me to think it could have been her. I mean, I watched her go over the edge of the cliff. There's no way she could have survived that fall. But even though I said the words out loud, there was still a part of me that was doubtful. I don't know what it was, just a niggling thought that one day, maybe when I was least expecting it, the old lady might appear right in front of me again.
Mom?
Don't you dare mom me, young lady! Why are you sitting here with this riffraff?
Tyrese Snyder. We dated through high school and college. Mom never liked Tyrese, and she never gave a reason why. I thought you were out of town on business. I stammered.
I was, but I came home early, and it's a good thing.
Mom grabbed my arm and dragged me to her car. Once in the car, Mom turned to me.
It's time you get a real man, settle down and get married.
I'm not going to dump Tyrese.
Well, Lynn, if you want to inherit my company, you'll do whatever I say.
Mom started the car and drove away from the restaurant. I sat in the passenger seat and folded my arms across my chest.
Who did Mom think she was? Trying to control who I dated? If you want to see how crazy things get, keep watching. It's going to get really weird from this point on. Over the next few weeks, to please Mom, I went out on a few casual dates with some of the men she found for me. Each man I dated had a bigger house and more money than the last. I never made it past date 1 because the more money they had, the snobbier they were. Mom, of course, was there during each date. I felt the puke burn my throat as it crawled into my mouth every time Mom spoke to my date with her fake customer service voice. One afternoon, Mom burst into my room.
Lynn, I have the perfect man for you. His name's Lincoln Ainsworth. Not only is he a cutie, but he's filthy rich and single. His father passed away last year, and being the only child, he inherited everything.
I tilted my head and looked at Mom in disbelief. And you see nothing wrong with what you just said?
Do you know how hard it was to raise you after your father died? I want to be assured that if anything happens to your husband, that you and your children are well taken care of. Besides, I already set the date up with you and Lincoln. Get ready for 7 p.m. sharp.
I rolled my eyes as Mom left the room. I messaged Tyrese and told him about Mom's latest shenanigans. He assured me that soon we'd be able to walk away from Mom in her madness and live our own lives. As I sat across from Mom and Lincoln that night in the restaurant, I expected him to be a bore like the others. I was pleasantly surprised when he was witty, charming, and intelligent. After 20 minutes, he looked over at Mom.
Delaney, you have such an amazing, intelligent daughter. I think I can take the date from here.
But what if...
We are both adults, and this date should be done on our terms.
I think I should...
It's either you stay or I go. The three of us can't stay at this table.
Mom stared at Lincoln. Eventually, Mom stood up and smiled politely. She kissed me on my cheek and whispered,
Don't mess this up.
Before she walked away. I've never seen anyone stand up to my mother.
Well, maybe it's about time someone should.
Mom's absence felt like a breath of fresh air, and the rest of the night went great. By the end of the night, we exchanged numbers, and he promised to keep in touch. As time went on, Lincoln and I spent more and more time together. During dinner one night, Lincoln gave me a small velvet black box. I looked at it suspiciously.
It's not an engagement ring.
He chuckled.
You can take it.
I took the box hesitantly from his hand and opened it. It was a key.
I know we've only known each other for 3 months, but I feel as though I've known you my entire life. I'd like you to move in with me.
Lincoln, I'm not sure about this. It's moving a bit too fast for me. I tried to return the box, but he refused.
How about you hold on to it until you're ready, okay?
I slipped the box into my handbag. As soon as I returned home that night, Mom approached me.
I just got off the phone with Lincoln. Have you thought about his proposal yet?
What proposal, Mom?
He asked you a very important question tonight. I think you should move in with him, secure your future.
Are you sure it's my future you want to secure, or your company's? The fact that Lincoln invested $5 million has nothing to do with it? I raised an eyebrow at Mom. As Mom's head account, I knew every transaction going into and coming out of the company.
Potato, potato.
Mom waved me off.
Well, how soon will you be moving in?
Mom, at least let me think about it.
Fine, but don't wait too long. Lincoln is a catch, and you know it.
I went to my room, locked the door, and immediately called Tyrese and told him about the situation.
I think you should do it.
I don't think it's such a good idea.
Our plan doesn't change. Once our business takes off, we can ask your mom's approval to be married.
I really hope this works.
Trust me, babe. This is going to work.
The following week, I moved in with Lincoln. Tyrese and I still saw each other, and with Lincoln away on business most weeks, a few days a week, it definitely made it easier.
So what movie are we watching today?
Tyrese asked as he sat next to me on the sofa with the bowl of popcorn in his hand. I didn't ask you here to just watch a movie. I smiled as I wrapped my arms around his neck and pulled him in for a kiss.
Lynn, what are you doing?
Tyrese and I shot out of the sofa and spun around. Mom glared at us.
What is the meaning of this, Lynn? Why is he here in Lincoln's house?
Mom turned up her nose in disgust. Mom, Tyrese is my guest. What are you doing here?
Guest?
Mom, I said firmly. What are you doing?
Lincoln asked me to come by, and it's a good thing he did.
Mom pointed at Tyrese.
You better leave before I call the police.
Who are you going to call the police on? My guest? I yelled. Tyrese turned to me and spoke softly.
Look, let me leave and I'll call you tomorrow, okay?
I nodded and kissed him lightly on his lips. Mom let out an exasperated sigh and shook her head. Tyrese exited the house.
Are you trying to lose Lincoln?
Mom's tone softened.
I only want what's best for you. I won't tell Lincoln about what I've seen if you promise it won't happen again.
I laughed. Ensuring that your investment is safe is a great business move, Mom. I have to hand you that. I don't care if you tell Lincoln. I don't love him. I love Tyrese. I'm only doing this for you. I stormed off towards the bedroom and locked the door. About an hour later, I heard a knock on the door.
Baby, I'm back.
I crawled out of the bed, opened the door for Lincoln.
Let me guess, you and your mom had it out again?
I shrugged. He leaned over and kissed me on the cheek.
I'll be right back, okay?
I nodded and Lincoln walked out of the room and closed the door behind him. After a few hours, Mom left and Lincoln prepared a romantic dinner for us. As soon as dinner was over, Lincoln held my hand and looked at me strangely. Do I have something in my teeth? I picked up a spoon to check. Lincoln chuckled.
There's nothing in your teeth. I'm just amazed at how good we are together. I can't believe how lucky I am to have such an intelligent, hardworking, gorgeous powerhouse of a woman by my side. I know we've only been together for a few months, but my father always told me it's better to take the risk rather than live with regret. So, Lynn Hamilton, will you marry me?
I squealed yes, and Lincoln slipped the ring on my finger. Over the next few weeks, Lincoln and I were extremely busy since he wanted to get married right away. He gave me access to his bank accounts and told me he wanted us to have the biggest wedding of the century. As the days of the wedding grew closer, I became anxious. I told Mom I couldn't go along with it. According to her, it was just pre-wedding jitters and everyone had them. She said once I walk down the aisle, I'll be okay. Despite Mom's comforting words, on the eve of the wedding during dinner at home, I told Lincoln that I wasn't ready to be married, and to be honest, my heart belonged to someone else. I expected Lincoln to be warm and loving, as he's always been to me. But Lincoln turned from Bruce Banner to Hulk in the blink of an eye. His eyes bulged and the vein in his head throbbed. He bellowed.
You're not going to make a fool of me! Who the heck do you think you are?
He passed his arm on the table and threw the dishes to the floor, together with my phone.
You will marry me! Daddy played a stupid trick and stated in his will that if I wasn't married by the anniversary of his death, I'll lose everything.
Lincoln grabbed my arm and I struggled to pull away. Lincoln, you're hurting me. Lincoln ignored my cries and sounded like a raged madman as he spoke.
We'll elope. Yes, that's what we'll do. Elope.
I snatched a single plate that was on the table and smashed it on Lincoln's head. Startled for a few seconds, I was able to escape his grasp. I grabbed my phone from the floor and ran down the hall to the guest bathroom and locked myself in. I checked my phone. Damn it. It was only 2%. I quickly called Tyrese and told him I needed him to come over quickly before my phone went dead. Lincoln banged on the door.
Lynn, open the door! Babe!
He banged for a few more minutes before everything went silent. Suddenly, I heard it. Lincoln was using an axe to break through the door. I held my breath with every hack against the door. It wasn't long before Lincoln made a hole big enough to look into the bathroom. He waved at me. I screamed and threw anything I could find at him in the bathroom. Lincoln dropped the axe and began to tear away at the door with his bare hands. Just as he was about to stretch in and grab me, something pulled Lincoln back. Hesitantly, I stepped towards the hole and peeked out. Tyrese and Lincoln were scrambling on the ground. They bounced against the door during their tussle and I screamed. It seemed like an eternity before I heard sirens and officers ordering Lincoln to put his hands in the air.
Lynn?
Tyrese said softly as he peered into the bathroom. I quickly unlocked the door and Tyrese hugged me tightly. Thank you for coming, I whispered into his neck. He walked me over to the police officers where Mom stood.
Lynn, thank God you're safe.
She hugged me and looked at Tyrese and mouthed thank you to him. After I gave my statement to the officers, Tyrese dropped Mom and me home. A few days after the ordeal, I begged Mom to give Tyrese a chance. Mom sighed.
Well, I guess I can give the guy who saved my daughter's life a chance.
I hugged my mom tightly. Thank you. I discussed with Mom Tyrese's plan for us to open our own business and that he'd be the best son-in-law she'd ever had.
Are you sure this is what you want?
I smiled and nodded vigorously. He's the only man for me, Mom. I love him, and he loves me.
Invite him to dinner Saturday night, and we can discuss this further.
Thank you, Mom. It means a lot. Later that day, I spoke with Tyrese and he was just as excited as I was. Saturday quickly rolled around and I woke up earlier than usual, and I couldn't wait for dinner time to arrive. That morning, I messaged Tyrese, and where he'd usually respond, there was silence. I thought maybe he was busy, and didn't think too much about it, until 3 p.m. arrived, and I received a text message stating that money was removed from my account. Again, I didn't think too much of it, and couldn't do anything since banks were already closed for the weekend. I tried calling Tyrese, but still no answer. I began to get worried, and I told Mom I couldn't get on to him.
Didn't you say you guys were starting a new business? If you want a successful man, you'll have to put up with a busy one.
As I got ready for dinner, something just wasn't sitting right with me. Dinner came and went, and still no Tyrese.
Maybe something did happen.
Mom said as she cleared the dinner table.
Maybe you should call the local hospitals and see if he got warded.
I called every hospital, and still no Tyrese. It seemed as though he just disappeared from the face of the earth. Around 10 p.m., my phone rang. It was Tyrese. "Babe, where have you been? I was worried sick."
Lynn, I just wanted to call you and let you know I removed the money from your account. If you haven't figured it out yet, I was just using you for the money I could get. Now that everyone else is out of the way and it's just me, well, let's just say the pool is dried up. I love you, Lydia.
The phone went dead. I threw my phone against the wall and screamed. Mom ran into the room.
Did they find him? Did they find Tyrese?
I sank to the floor and Mom sat and held me until I was able to tell her what was wrong. I told her that Tyrese stole $10 million from me and he isn't coming back. Mom pulled away and raised an eyebrow.
Where did you get $10 million?
I dried my eyes. I saved it from all the men I dated, and well, I was never planning to marry Lincoln, and I stashed the money for the wedding in my account. Mom sighed.
You can't betray others and not expect to be betrayed yourself. You can choose to allow this moment to break you, or you can pick up the pieces of your life and build something beautiful.
As the days went on, the pain of Tyrese's betrayal eased. I do hope that one day I'll be able to find someone who loves me for me, and not what I can do for them. But maybe I deserve this. I don't know.